Sprague Thursday afternoon at 6:20. There's plenty to get into. We are now less than 2 weeks away from the NBA draft, 2024 NBA draft, which means we are now officially actually less than a month away from 2025, 2024-25 Summer League. In less than a month, I will actually. We're a month away from our golf tournament.
Yep.
It's on.
Yep.
Is that on
July 11th?
Thursday? Yeah, July 11th is on Thursday. So it's actually a month away or 4 weeks away from that right now. The next morning, I will be leaving at the crack of dawn for Summer League, which means I will be in fantastic shape, both mentally and physically.
You're going to be there right at the start on the 12th?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I'm sure I will just be in tip-top shape following the golf tournament. I definitely won't need to be packed up and rolled onto the plane. Good God.
No, man, it's
this plane ride brought to you
crazy.
by tequila.
Yeah, no kidding. It's kind of crazy how fast it's going. I know it's still a couple weeks away, but today we get another announcement of the guys that were working out in attendance, and we got a lot of questions that we'll get to and talk about some of this stuff. But podcasts and write-ups and mocks, and you're diving into all this stuff, and it's just it always flies by. The draft's going to be here. Summer League's going to be there. And then before you know it, we're off for like a month and a half. And, camp's around the corner. And here we go.
Well, the interesting thing is I was talking to a couple people today at the Blazers practice facility. The specter of one of the franchise's greatest player being traded, not hanging over, has made this summer a lot lighter. It's been
The crazy thing
a little
is,
easier, breezier situation.
Yes.
It's been like, the time's just flying by. I don't have a bunch of lunatics in my mentions. It's been nice.
well, it helps that Miami's season went to absolute shit too.
Who
So
doesn't love to see that? Where do you want to start?
let's real quick run this down, and then I think we could just dive into a lot of the questions. I thought the last pod was a lot of fun, getting a lot of the questions and having kind of natural conversations for them. So today, and you were in the building, you put some content out there on your Twitter account. Blazers had in Tristan Da Silva,
Nikola Jursic.
Yep.
Jursic, Kyle Filipowski, go UNC, David Jones, Pele Larson, and Jameer Young for workouts. We talked on the last pod, and I know you talked about it on the radio as well, the big Tuesday report that came out where the names were not named, but they were named, but it happened, but it didn't happen. So that should just be where we kind of start in terms of like what happened today, what's happened the last couple of days. Let's just start right here, Danny. First question from
Commit Jared. Have you heard any trade rumblings regarding Portland? Got a couple trade questions in here. What is your educated guess on what they do with Malcolm Brogdon?
Too early to tell. The player trade stuff has been very, very quiet while people are trying to figure out which players they're looking at in the draft. I would imagine like the conversations have been had. I know a bunch of teams have called about guys, but nothing more than exploratory that I've heard at this point. It's been relatively quiet on that front. I think everybody's waiting for the end of the finals, the fiscal year, and the opportunity. So there's one big domino in Cleveland that has to fall with Donovan Mitchell. I very, 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 very much expect him to sign that extension.
Well, where else would he go? Like he wants to the Knicks.
That's the thing is like the new CBA essentially precludes player movement for Supermax guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the maybe the players might have screwed this one up. Might have screwed this one up.
Hold on. I will argue. Yes, in that term, yes.
Player mobility at the top right now for the top 15% earners, you ain't going nowhere.
It's good for the league.
Don't be wrong, but look, the league is not the players though.
No, I know, but
I'm saying the players from their standpoint, bag might have been dropped.
Well, Danny, you're not wrong.
Just saying.
How many players unions in sports end up winning the whole, labor?
They got guaranteed contracts. They're better off than most guys. I'm not arguing, but they dropped the bag on
They
that.
they dropped the bag, but
But it is,
you know.
it is what that's. We'll talk about the CBA stuff as we get ready for free agency after summer league and after the draft. After the draft. Blah, blah, blah. But as far as trade stuff goes right now, I've only heard like little inklings. But back to Donovan Mitchell. Once everyone knows for sure, pen to paper is being signed, and you start understanding, okay, he's here. Darius is gonna stay because the Cavs want. I've heard more than a few people say that the Pelicans thought that they could get Darius Garland and Jared Allen for Brandon Ingram, which no, they can't.
What?
No, they can't.
Do they know who Brandon Ingram is?
The distressed asset that is Brandon Ingram right now. That look, he's not Zach LaVine, but
No.
he's the closest facsimile to Zach LaVine on the market right now, as far as like what people think he is and what he's actually paid. It's like it's not great. I know that in the past, specifically Cleveland has been interested in Ingram, so that might be something that they revisit. I've heard from multiple sources that you can get Zach LaVine for a used ball rack at this point. He's about as available as anyone gets in the NBA right now. I think the only person who would be more available in the league with that kind of money is Bradley Beal, who Phoenix would probably be like, go ahead.
He has a no trade clause, doesn't he?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like if there was somebody out there that would actually take it, he would want to go to. Yeah, I think they would go down that path very quickly. But with all of that said, once the big domino is set, then everything else falls in line. That's, I think, kind of the understanding. And there does seem to be real juice behind Paul George going to Philadelphia. There's other names I've heard there. I've heard OG Anunoby is very likely to resign in New York. Pascal Siakam is about as close to being done with him staying in Indiana. Trying to think who else.
Those were, to me, both those trades. And look, the market is crazy and wild sometimes. Both those trades were Jeremy Grant-ish vibes to me of like.
They weren't though.
Oh, see, I thought the Siakam one for sure.
That's
was
actually
like
the one that wasn't. That one was actually further away. Indiana actually took as I understand it, Indiana took probably a 75-25 risk there. Like there was real risk of him like, nah, dog, because part of the reason he wanted to stay in Toronto, he's Cameroonian. They're culturally, Toronto's significantly more of a melting pot.
Big melting pot, yeah.
I mean, like it's like New York, but Canada, and also smaller. Where Indiana not. But I think the chance they took was him ingratiating with Tyrese Halliburton and being a guy that you want to play with, and their run I think really helped solidify that. The Knicks are going to have to back up a truck for OG. Like that's the real thing. They might lose Hartenstein out of it. That might be a thing. So that's something to kind of keep your eye on as far as like movement. Like not a big name guy that you kind of go, well, let's see what happens. And if they do think that is a stronger possibility, that's probably going to dictate what they do on draft day. So you could see them go get, not in the same vein anywhere near defensively, but a guy like Kyle Filipowski, who is 7 foot tall and has like natural ability to kind of work as a bit of a playmaking hub, which Hartenstein does not get enough credit for doing. And I think Flip, who worked out with the Trailblazers today, is a guy you could probably see going there as a 70% version of Hartenstein. Like, okay, this is like, it's the landlord special where you go in and there's a hole in the wall and you put a couple sheets of paper and then paint over the hole in the wall as opposed to using the plaster. Like, nobody will notice. It's another 7 foot white guy, right? I think that's kind of the situation there.
I find the Pelicans fascinating that their idea is like, hey, how do we get better? Let's do the Garland CJ backcourt. That'll really solve our woes.
I would imagine that CJ would probably either be your sixth man or he would be on his third team.
I was one of my hot takes, and it didn't look good for a long time. I've always thought CJ would be an amazing six man.
Oh, of course.
I've always felt that way.
Everybody's always like, well, Manu did it. And I'm like, yeah, one guy in NBA history was like, nah, I'll come off the bench.
It's like the Pistons example. It's like, well, the Pistons won without like a superstar. And it's
Yeah,
like,
no,
well,
you're right. They had 5 All-Stars. Congratulations.
yeah,
Like,
thank you for your one example.
thank you for the exception proving the rule or not proving the rule. It's like, yeah, it's okay, guys. But this has got I've rambled on. The trade market, I believe it's going to be active, but this is prime lying season right now. So I wouldn't listen to a ton of stuff, good, bad, or otherwise. Everything I kind of just mentioned was stuff that was kind of coming out of the last couple of weeks in anticipation of moves that are probably going to be happening. On the coaching front, it sounds like Borrego is probably going to be the guy in Cleveland, JJ in LA, and that should help solidify coaching staffs as we kind of go forward, which would allow the Blazers to actually start filling out the rest of their staff.
We do have a question on the coaches. We'll get to that. I got a kind of follow-up to this because there's a couple trade-type questions. A follow-up to the Malcolm stuff, but I want to get to the next question. This one
From Frano Terror, who says, if somehow Klingon went to Washington with the second pick,
which, by the way, side note, we don't need to interrupt the podcast for this. Where Klingon is mocked on all of these is wild. From 1 to 8. It's just like, it's crazy, this draft. If somehow Klingon went to Washington with a second pick, do you see any scenario in which the Blazers trade up with Houston to get Risochet?
And what would it take to move up? And I know this is also going to be something we get to because there's a few questions on it. The whole Kevin O'Connor, was he throwing stuff against a wall? Was he reporting? I don't know. This is a weird time of the year. Yeah.
The Blazers moving up stuff.
But what say you on Risochet if he is to fall to 3?
I've liked Zach for a while now. I was not a big fan of his at Hoop Summit last year. I got to talk to one of his coaches who was really forthright about like what he was struggling with and why he was struggling and why he didn't play well at Hoop Summit. And I was very interested in that. And then I kind of dove into him really early in his season over in France with Borg. And I was like, holy crap, this guy, like the confidence is there. He's shooting the hell out of the ball. I think my first big board that I had out in November or December, I can't remember which one it was. I had Riza Shea. I had SAR 1, Riza Shea 2. I'm trying to remember who I had 3, and then
Was it Buzelis at that time?
No, I had Ron and Modest. I both had outside of my top 5. I had Cody and then Salon 4 and 5. I can't remember who I had 3. Anyways, I still really like Zach. It is very hard for me to imagine the Blazers being like, we need to go get Zach. Because as much as I like him comparatively to this draft, and I think he can figure some stuff out. And I've heard like the best comp of like the best active player I've heard him comp to is Trey Murphy. And I had people push back like, well, Trey Murphy's this, and this. I'm like, well, like 3-4 years ago. Oh my God, when was Trey Murphy?
He was at Rice, right?
Yeah, he was at Rice in what? God,
I think
2020 before he transferred. Like when you take a look at how old he was at that age, or how the ages, like because Zach's still young. Like, so that's the thing you always have to take into account when you're looking at this stuff is the ages. If he's a guy who, you know, what does Zach Rizachet look like 3 years down the road? If you think it's Trey Murphy, and like because he's starting to show things already, then you can talk yourself into moving up to 3 for the right price if you believe that is your 4 kind of going forward. I'm not sure that anyone in this class outside of SAR could convince me to do that, because I've been high on SAR for a while now. Like the first time I saw him play, I went, okay, look, there's things to work on, but there's Defensive Player of the Year type tools here. And immediately I was like, that's like a split between Evan Mobley and Jaren Jackson Jr. as far as like a physical profile and mobility and like the amount of space he can cover. But to move up to 3, like it's the worst held secret in the world that Houston doesn't want to draft another guy.
Yeah.
They're just like, well, we've got Jalen and we've got Alpi and we've got
They think
Tari,
they're a player
and we've got
away is
Jabari.
what they do.
Yeah, they have Cam. Like they just have young guy after young guy after young guy. The last thing they need is another young guy.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of like moving up to 3, if it was like Malcolm Brogdon in 14 for 3, okay. Still not thrilled about it.
Yeah.
Still not thrilled about it.
If they were to do that, I see the first thing that comes to my mind when you say something like that. If they're to move 14 and Malcolm, let's say for the example here, to get to 3, I'm gonna imagine the Crone Zone is in love with somebody
They love somebody there. Yeah,
Yeah.
like in the like somebody like let's say shit goes sideways and Sar is there at 3.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
yes.
Joe, send in the pick now. I'll pack Malcolm's shit. Like that's
No, but
like that's
just
for me. Like you know what I mean? And I love Malk, and I that's not just supposed to Malk at all. I love him. Great
but he doesn't
dude.
fit what they're doing.
Yeah,
right
and
now.
like, but like if it's Sar, for me, yeah, I'm like, fuck, what do I gotta do to move up to 3? The whole idea of Ant 7-14 for 3.
That was wild.
Find me a short bridge to take a header off.
That
Like,
yeah,
it's just hard pass, dog. Hard pass.
I responded to somebody and I said, if we do that, we're the Kangs. We are officially the Kangs, and I have no faith of what we're doing if that's what you're moving Anthony Simons for. It didn't make any sense.
Let's do a quick exercise.
Yeah.
Let's do a quick exercise. Bobby Marks is like low end level deal for return to send Ant to Orlando. I was talking to Orlando Sanchez earlier today, so instead of saying Orlando, I'm saying Orlando. Orlando, the Orlando Magic, was Anthony Black, a recent number 7 overall pick, another first round pick, and Cole Anthony. So if you're packaging up 7, 14, and Anthony Simons, you're essentially sending 4 first round picks and to get number 3, to move up from 7. That's batshit crazy.
And you're trading maybe your best trade asset on your roster right now. Maybe.
That's a hard pass.
Yeah, that's a no thank you,
hard
sir.
Pass.
That's a spam call. I'm not even answering. We're hitting the red button, man. That thing's going to voicemail.
It's just a hard no. And people are like, well, yeah, of course you would do Brogdon and 14 for 3. Like, I'm not saying like that's the bare minimum I would do. I'm saying I would not give up assets such as Anthony, Malcolm, or Jeremy to move up in this draft because independently and by themselves, they are worth more than moving up a couple slots.
Yeah.
Like that's a hard pass. Comment, what if it's Ant 7 and 14 for 3 and Jabari Smith?
It's a different conversation.
That's a very different conversation.
Different conversation. Like, who's there on the board, I think, at that point, but also how much, I guess what I would say is, because I saw a quote recently. It was Jabari himself. He was at the NBA press conference.
He's working as a reporter, and he was like, he asked Jason Tatum, what would you tell a player that hasn't lived up
to the hype yet? Yeah, and I thought that was a really actually vulnerable, honest thing to ask in that moment in front of a lot of people. And so it's like, what do you think the ceiling of Jabari Smith is at that point? If you love it, then that's something I would do, because you're getting a young 4. You can go get whoever you love at 3.
Anybody who knows me knows where I stand on Jabari Smith. Very high. Still got a lot of stock there.
I think that comment then, it resonates and it sits with you and you go, hell yeah, we're in.
Yeah, look, that's a guy that's super high up on my board.
What contract does Jabari have right now? Let's say it in Joe Cronin's voice. Rookie scale
deal.
Scale deals.
A Joe Cronin special right there.
Look, I don't think Ant makes sense for Houston. But,
yeah, why would you want him in Van Vliet? I don't get it.
Well, not just that. Like, I think they're trying to get off of Jalen Green, who, like, I don't think they want to be in the Jalen Green business, would be the way that I would phrase that.
Okay.
I've been very interested to see who does want to be in the Jalen Green business.
The Hornets.
So,
All
very
right.
interesting.
Let's get to this one. Jimmer's Army wants to know, have you heard from Blazer sources about seriously, again, there's going to be a lot of repeats here. So have you heard from Blazer sources about seriously trading up from 14? Who do you think their top guys are?
About trading up seriously? No, I think they have done due diligence. That's where I think they are with this stuff. I have not heard anything. Like I said, if they have attempted to legitimately move up, they are doing it very quietly. Very quietly.
Which would actually make me very happy if that's what they're doing quietly. I may not have loved everything Neil did, but I did love they weren't constantly leaking their stuff out there.
Well, it's because they were also failing to land anything, so you never heard anything.
Well, it's a different conversation, Daniel.
You know. Can I interest you in Tony Snell and Cody Zeller?
So unless there's something going on behind the scenes, moving up.
Yeah. I as of right now, like I said, I've heard about them having the talks about other players as far as like or other picks and like what it would cost and just kind of getting an understanding. There was a second part of that question. What was it?
It just top guys.
The team's top guys. If I had to guess right now, at pick 7, I would say the top 3 are probably Klingon if he fell, Tijan Salon, and Cody Williams.
He's going up in the latest Bleacher Report mock.
Mm-hmm. Cody's rising. I continue to hear that Ron Holland is falling. And I continue to hear that if Modest makes it past 5, Modest is falling. Rob Dillingham is falling. Although Dilly might be able to save some of his stock, he hasn't been able to work out until I think yesterday. He had a pro day yesterday or the day before in LA, and then he's going to go out on workouts. Reed Shepard sounds like he's locked between like 3 and 6. Like if Houston doesn't take him, I've heard Charlotte is chasing him. So, which means like where does Steph Castle fit in all this? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't expect the Blazers to bring in any of the guards for a workout, but that could change.
Okay.
We'll see. Castle's really been controlling his workouts. I would imagine for the most part, unless one other guy changes his workout schedule, the lottery guys are all done, or the near lotto guys are all done. You might see some end of the first round guys. I saw somebody asked about Deron Holmes. Deron, like Tristan Da Silva, actually together worked out last year in Portland. If it's actually funny, if you go back and you look at that group, the group that came in with Deron and Tristan, it's actually like, damn, that's a good group. Like a year later, like, yeah, that's a nice little group right there.
Yeah, they're all right here.
But I think Deron might be one of the guys that's slated to come through. I have to double check.
He said, now, isn't he the guy that said he's got a promise?
He's got some stuff shut down, but
yeah,
we'll see. It's always like promises are promises that aren't promises 2 weeks out. Like when we've got a week, 5 days left, and then I start hearing about promises, I'm like, okay, that's a promise. Like there was talk about Devin Carter having a promise like 3 weeks ago, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. That would be crazy. Hey,
that's too far out to be promising.
Shut your workout down now. It's like, and then
that's offering a 7th grader a full scholarship.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Hey, baby Gronk, you want to come play?
At 14, it's all over the place, and I think 14 is very dependent of what happens at 7. That's my gut feeling right now. Is a guy who came in today, and Tristan Da Silva, a guy I could very easily see them taking at 14. Abso-frickin-lutely.
I'd be very happy with that.
TDS is a solid player, man. Like if you're gonna have like when we've talked about Dalton, and Dalton's a guy I've heard might go as early as 4 now. So.
Well, I had a guy on this week on my radio show from Tennessee who covered him, and he was just telling me some great there was a practice. He got really pissed off at his teammates, and he basically challenged him before the season because nobody knew if he was going to be great, right? He comes in and somebody pissed him off, and so he challenged his teammates, and he goes, "Put your money up or shut up." and he played one-on-one against all these dudes. And
And
every
cooked
time
them.
he beat him, he did the Johnny Manziel money sign on him. And I'm like, oh, I love this guy.
I will say the dog in him per 36 is rated very, very highly behind the scenes.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing about De Silva is watching him this year in the Pac-12 and then like you could see some of the highlights on YouTube, but, be careful with that, by the way. He kind of fits, well, at least to me, he kind of fits what Portland's aiming for. There's the obvious Colorado tie, and you can think about that whatever you want, but like Tad Boyle was a really good college basketball coach.
He's a lunatic, but he's a great coach.
He is a great coach, and kind of like I know I hate the comp thing in terms of like when you say it, it's like, oh, he better be as good as this guy. I kind of like him as like a weird tweener of Jaime and Kuzma. He's this like weird kind of good
I think
side.
Kuzma's a good comp for him. Not as strong as Kyle, because Kuz is a dump truck, man. He's a big dude. But De Silva's like because Kuz doesn't really rely on like crazy burst or athleticism. Like, don't get me wrong, he's athletic for his size. That's the same thing with Tristan. Like, if you watch the interview today when we were talking to him, one of the things that he kept mentioning is like, for my size. Like, he is very much aware. It's like, and he measured great at the combine. He measured
6'8", 6'10" wingspan.
Yeah, so like a little undersized on the wingspan, but like he's a legitimate 6'8". And a guy who's at 6'8" barefoot, which means he plays at 6'9", has he tween, pull up three, can work in isolation, can work in pick and roll, can work as a cutter, work at catch and shoot.
Dumping in the post.
He's smart enough to work as a lower level secondary initiator, a connector piece. Like, he's just not gonna screw anything up. Like, he's just a smart basketball player. And so like getting him at 14, I think that's probably a win because he's a basketball player. On Dalton, I had a scout tell me the other day. I was like, "What do you think of Dalton?" He goes, "Oh, you mean the white dude who went to the SEC and cooked everyone? Yeah, no, he'll be fine." I was like, "Okay, like, I guess."
Enough said.
I guess when you put it that way, sure. I mean, think about it. Think about the SEC, the athletes that come out of there.
Yeah.
And how good you have to be to give everyone a 20-piece.
Yep.
Or 30 or a 40 burger. Like, say what you want about the guy, lateral quickness, da-da-da-da. I think he'll end up being a good sixth man. Like, I think that's his career. Like, I think he's going to be a really good sixth man.
Yeah.
This one from @WhiteGuilt48. With all the talk of trading our lottery picks to move up, hasn't been much surrounding what the Blazers will do with 4 rookies. Will they trade their seconds for future seconds or move current players on the roster? That's the other thing in this draft is, Danny, people talk about the roster spots, what's available, what's not available. They got the 4 picks. Harry would like to know what we make of that.
So when people have been kind of freaking out about the financial status of stuff, I've said don't. Now, where there's an actual thing that needs action done to it sooner rather than later, and by sooner rather than later, I mean in the next month, not, tomorrow. There is a roster crunch. Like, that part of it is real. Now, it doesn't become a problem until July 1st, as far as like when we get into the new league year. That's when the new contracts matter. There's one way the Blazers can go about this to help string things out. It's called not signing your rookies for 2 weeks, which will keep them under the space that they need to avoid some things, which they won't be able to practice, but oh my God, they won't be ready for summer league. It's going to and that'll be somebody freaks out about, like, well, they didn't get summer league practices in. It's going to set their development back. Oh my God. I can already see their rage and frustration because that's what you do in a tanking year. I get it. But they can do some things to delay those financial complications that arise from having the additional bodies. And you can carry 20. I have to take a look at this.
Is it as high as 20? I was wondering about
20.
that. Yeah.
Into camp before they have to cut down. So it's not like, oh my God, they're screwed. They do need to figure out, especially with like the guaranteed contract guys, because like one of the issues is like Delano was nice at the end of the year, but if the choice is cut him or forcibly trade a valuable asset for pennies on the dollar, you're going to cut Delano.
Yeah.
You're going to not guarantee his deal. So I think there's some things that they can go through before they get down that path, but they can avoid the roster crunch fully by just not signing guys to contracts. So
yeah, I think also once free agency hits too, you see some of these teams how they fill it
I'm
out.
gonna have to hear it again. But my headset cut off. There we go. Try that again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Okay.
I think also once free agency happens and trades and all that stuff, like teams will have more of an idea of what they need to move to get who they want to get. And so the patience thing, I think this goes to this question from Craig Aspich. I hope I said that right. We need to trade Ant and keep Brogdon until trade deadline. Mentor Scoot for another half season. Thoughts on that?
Why?
The Ant one, yeah, sure. You want to wait and get a great deal. Brogdon, I don't really think it matters.
And
the mentor thing, like I don't mean like Ant's going to be this, like that's all his goal is for next year. I'm just saying like if you need to be patient for Ant for your return, I get it. Brogdon, yeah, whatever.
Look, if the Blazers wanted a first-round pick for Brogdon, they could get it. It would just be in this draft. And it would be probably in the early 20s.
The back end, yeah.
But that's not – I don't think that's necessarily – yes, you got a first-round pick, and you can put another one on the board as part of the Damian Lillard trade.
The Dame trade, yeah.
Congratulations. But is that, prudent via the, roster building? I don't think so. If that means you hold on to him and you got a bad first, quote unquote bad, but real first round pick in 2026 and you end up with the Chris Murray first in 2026, I'd rather them do that. I would rather them do that and have the opportunity to have it be top 8, top 10 protected.
Yeah. And
then maybe it at best gets up to 16 if some team falls apart. You know what I mean? I'd rather have that happen.
Yeah.
I think that makes more sense, but again, you have to see kind of where that shakes out. But this whole idea, as it pertains to Scoot,
the mentoring part,
not even just that, but the clearing the runway for Scoot. The organization is going to do right by him and allow him to succeed in all those things. That doesn't necessarily require trading Anthony Simons. What if, worst case scenario, Scoot is a rotation guard, and you just went and you just traded Anthony Simons to clear the runway for a guy that you're not sure on yet. And again, I'm not saying that Scoot is going to be that. I don't think he is. But what if he is?
Well, that's the thing is nobody knows yet.
And that's why I'm much more about slow rolling, which is why I always said not this summer, but next summer is when you have to make that decision because I think you need to have 2 years with Scoot to understand where he is. And I just disagree with the order of operations. Also, I think that they could go get a veteran third guard, fourth guard type to be the mentor in the locker room. Hell, is Devin Carter's dad still around? He's still around. I mean, you can get him on a league minimum.
Couple 10-day contracts.
He'll be fine. He's not going to want to play anyways. His knees will feel like mine.
This one from Rip City, DC. What are the reasons to not draft Saloon? He seems like a no-brainer for the Blazers. This was something you and I were talking about before we went live on the pod of just what they do at 7, who grabs who, what makes sense.
Yeah.
And I tend to agree of just the general idea of if he's there at 7, assuming there's not maybe a Klingon, he seems like maybe the most logical one of.
I think it's him or Cody. I think that's kind of where it's at.
Sure.
Stylistically, and profile wise, I think they both fit. Salon did work out on Tuesday. I will say it with my chest. He did work out on Tuesday. He was in town. He was a part of that group. That workout did happen. For everybody wondering, Cody Williams was in on Friday. Modest Buzelos was in on Thursday. So they've all come.
Modest was
through
in after Dalton, right?
literally after Dalton.
Yeah.
Like we had to leave because the next workout was closed, and it was like
Private.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I knew who it was, and it was like I can't stay. I mean, just sit and watch. I won't say anything. Take my phone. But yeah, like they've brought them in all recently, like kind of, and I think that was probably purposefully to get a look at those guys, kind of like all in a row. To have maybe it just happened to work out like that. Maybe that's what happened, but it was interesting talking to people about Salon. And hey, what was your first impression? Holy shit, that kid's big.
6'10", right? Like 230, 220.
220, yeah.
Woo.
And everybody I talked to, some version of, yeah, he could carry 20 pounds more. Like it's nothing. Like his
Get
frame.
to 240, 250.
Yeah, he's
oh
physically, he's special. Like as far as his frame and like you just 6'10", 7'2" wingspan, +4 guy, just big as hell, fluid mover. Like you don't see those kind of guys come across all that often. And that's like my draft, talking points that I've written about on the Patreon. If all things are equal, if I'm looking at a prospect, if they're like tiered equally, like I've talked about this with like last year with Brandon and Scoot. I had Brandon Miller 2 on my board, Scoot 3. And if I had them same tier, but I went, look, if gun to my head, I'm going to go with Miller. Why? He's bigger and longer and has a higher athletic profile for a bigger player. You don't.
The position you're always chasing, yeah.
6'9" does not come across as often as 6'2". It's a scarcity thing. And the skill level for Miller was dumb high. And it's the same thing. Like, I love Cody. And I think Cody's a safer pick. I put them on the same scale. Like, Cody Williams is like best possible outcome is probably somewhere along the lines of Jaden McDaniels with a little bit more wiggle and a little bit less less disruption defensively, like less being a rim protector or less being in passing lanes. Like that's the one thing is like I like Cody's defensive profile and impact. He doesn't impact the box score in a way that I think he should, but offensively, I think he can legitimately be like probably around a Jeremy Grant level. It's very easy for me to
That's
see
pretty
him
good.
Like a 17
that's pretty
to
good.
19 point a game guy.
Yeah, that's
Like,
something you need.
Pretty simply. But with Salon, I think, which again, that's a really good player. That's like a high level role player. I think Salon is like his low level outcome is probably like Mo Wagner, which Mo's like a 6'11", really irritating son of a bitch to play against because his motor is always running and he's kind of an irritant. Like Salon's motor is always running. He's big, he's strong, he's physical, he's not afraid of contact. He knows how to leverage his body.
He's really raw though too.
He's not Bruno Caboclo. He's not 2 years away from being 2 years away. Like, I think people need to like slow their roll. Like, what does he do? And it's like, I don't know. He was impactful for a French professional league, like top level team in their playoffs.
Well, I mean, look, if you're taking him, and let's just say Cody, for the argument's sake, is there.
Mm-hmm.
If you're taking him, I mean, I think it's pretty quite clear. It's like you're swinging. You're going for the fence.
Yes.
You're hoping that this is your version of. I hate saying this name, but like a Giannis, you're swinging for the international guy.
It's not quite that though, because Giannis's like on the ball juice is so crazy, and that's like when they first found him, like Schmitz and Gavoni were like some of the first guys to kind of really see him like playing at like this little tiny ass place in Greece. But to your point, the physical profile I think is real.
That's what I'm saying is they're hoping that
continues to get bigger and better and keeps learning the game.
No, I'm 100% with you. Like, but on the high end, I think he's less feel, less playmaky Aaron Gordon.
I'm all about it.
Like that's
should have traded for him instead of Norm Powell.
It's I mean, helpful.
It'd be nice to have an Aaron Gordon in Portland. I'll say that much. This one from Blazer fan 42069. Nice. Is there a world? Kind of went over this. Is there a world where Scoot Ant coexist on the roster? If next season evaluations say that Ant is the guy for Portland, would transitioning Scoot to 6-man role be a viable option?
Sure, it's viable. Can they
Scoot,
work?
okay, let me ask you this. In this scenario, because it seems very real to me right now, is Scoot in a position where if it's like, hey, Scoot, you're 6-man of the year 2, is there any sort of excuse me? Like, is there a little bit of grumbling going on, or is he in the take it for what it is, run with it role? You know what I mean? Like, the only thing I wonder about Scoot is year 2, number 3 pick in the draft. Hey, welcome back. You're our top bench guy, not starting.
Hard to say for a young guy. It's just so rare that happens. Like, it was like, again, everyone's like, well, Manu did it. Like, well, Manu had been a pro. Came into the league. When did Manu come to the NBA? He was 26?
Yeah, he was an older seasoned guy.
Yeah,
for sure, compared to most of the guys that he got drafted with.
He was not here, like, right out of the... Yeah, he was 25.
Yeah.
Scoot will not be that for 5 more years. Like, just, like, put that in perspective for a second. You know what I mean? Like, so would he be willingly accepting of that? Probably not.
See, that's a weird scenario to me, though. It's a wild scenario, too.
Look, if you get to year 5...
I'm not saying he is... That's...
No. I'm saying, like, if we were talking about year 5, sure. Sure. Like that's... Okay. But that's just not a thing that happens all that often. But if you're asking if I think they can work together on the floor, short or long term, the answer is no.
Yeah, I don't buy that at all either.
They don't fit together because they're, as I have said from the jump, Ant is a 1.
Yeah.
So it's not something that's tenable.
This one from Eric Salmela, sorry. And by the way, I'm sorry if I'm butchering any of your names. We love you.
You're not. You
Thank
did
you
on
so
purpose.
much.
I know you. You told me. You like,
No.
watch me butcher these names on purpose.
What's it like to be an asshole? Have you gotten any intel at all regarding who the Blazers have been impressed with during recent workouts, and why? Is it Saloon?
I think that for the most part, I've heard workouts not only in Portland but around the league have gone relatively well.
That's good.
There have been I'm not gonna throw any names out there. I know that's what everybody wants, but
guys playing better than expected.
Just like workouts go, like guys have put on some weight. They've clearly worked on some stuff since the end of seasons. It's like I'll give an example. Like Khalil Ware. Khalil Ware's interviews, not the media stuff, but like with teams and like addressing his motor stuff. I have heard that he has done himself favors and might find himself in the lottery.
It's good. I like to hear stuff like that.
So, like, there will be a player, Holland, who is going to fall in this draft, and people who love highlights are going to eat shit. Like, they're just going to how did you pass on this guy? And it's going to go, well, reasons. And then eventually, like, the intel will get out on guys, and you'll go, yeah, okay, I get it. And I still have a feeling somebody's going to take a swing on Ron,
sure.
Specifically sooner rather than later. I don't think he's going to fall out of the lottery just because some owner is going to be like, this guy was the number 1 prospect coming in this year in this class. Like, why are we not going, screw it, we're just going to swing and see if like that holds true. And then you should Baz Muhammad this thing.
Well, not that Buzelis is the same situation, but like to that owner, it will be a natural response for me of like G League Unite. That's all we need to say. Like there's nothing more to talk about. They quite literally shut it down. I don't know if I'm going to trust anything that was happening in that situation. So,
well, good, bad, or otherwise, because remember, Scoot started out poor last year. Jalen Green was a disaster for 2 years. It was just like, ugh. Like they tried to trade him before he had that big or this last trade deadline, and people were just like, Houston just couldn't get what they wanted.
Just passing by. No, thank
and then
you.
he had the back end of the schedule, end of the year run.
Yeah, he
young
ended up
guys
really
have,
well. Yep.
and probably improved his value. And all it takes is one team.
Mm-hmm.
But it's it is what it is.
It's that Drea bump. This one from Jake. He says, since you guys are answering every question, what's your favorite ice cream? And if you could cover any other sport, which sport and why? And I'm actually wondering if we're going to say the same sport.
It's the other sport that I love football. Baseball would be number 2 because there's a game or two every day, and
Every day.
You're just cooking, baby. Hey, what are you doing? Watching baseball? Watching baseball?
Yeah, but think about this for you. You already have moments where you get annoyed when people react to game 17. How do you think it's going to be when they react to game 17 of a 162 season?
You know what happens? No, everybody turns out during July. I'm good. I'm good.
God.
But the sport that I thought I could financially allow to would be lacrosse.
That's a stunning answer.
Lacrosse.
I should have thought about that with you.
I
but
coached, and it's a sport. Of all the sports that I played, it was one that I was the best at by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be lacrosse.
Mine would be the NFL. It's not remotely close for second place there. I mean, it's the NFL. It's football. I love football. Every Sunday, you just can't beat that feeling. Monday night football, Thursday, whatever. I'm all in on it. And getting to talk to some of those legends, assuming we're in a similar spot, I'd be great. Chocolate chip mint, and it's got to be green. I'm very specific about that. If it's a white chocolate chip mint, it ain't doing it for me. I need it to be green. I need the idea that it's like it's green because of the mint.
It's so disgusting.
What's your favorite?
I'll say a mango sorbet.
What is this, France? The hell are you talking about, man?
I'm just saying, man.
Froyo guy. This one from T_.
Mint is meant for mojitos and toothpaste, nothing else.
Oh, you're crazy. We should do that as a poll question on the Jack Ramsay's better ice cream. Some mint or mango sorbet or chocolate chip mint ice cream. This one from
people are wrong.
It's always the people that are wrong, never you.
No, exactly. I'm glad you're picking this up.
From T Darkstar, Portland has taken more experienced college players in the past, like Roy and Lillard. How would you feel if the Blazers went that route this year and ended up with Connect and De Silva?
No. I get where Darkstar's coming from. Shut up, Blazers Edge. But as much as I like both players, this is not the draft for that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you are just convinced that they have the highest, like the swing is actually taking them. If you can convince me that that is where you're at with this, okay. I think it's hard pressed to do that. But I couldn't go down that path. Not taking both of them.
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you, and I know we've talked about this a few pods. One of them feels like a swing pick, and I don't know what number that is, but one of them feels like a swing pick. The other one feels like this one, where you're going for that experience. I'd also add, though, if in this scenario you end up with Connect and De Silva, I won't bat an eye at that, and I would understand it based on what we have discussed. This may not be the draft for that, but I would see that and say, okay, they're identifying mature, kind of stable players, and whether that's the right or wrong move, it had to play out. But I would kind of understand why they would do that. This one from @Pam_Sears. Have you heard any interesting skill sets guys on the roster are working on adding to their game this summer, like a DA3 ball or Scoot locking down a consistent runner? I love a good runner, a good floater. Oh, I love a good runner and floater.
Not just that, but I know Scoot is working on that. But the thing that he told me he was going to work on, he was going to work on his footwork. And he has worked with a trainer named Jordan, who's also worked with Steph Curry. And Scoot's working with him this summer on helping getting his footwork right. I think Scoot's biggest separator right now from like being able to unlock things, whether it be a floater or runner or finishing at the rim or getting to his spots, his footwork is a disaster. Or I should say, it was a disaster last year. That was the thing that was... everybody talks about his shooting, but his shooting's fine. Like, he'll be fine as a shooter. He's not going to be... I don't think he's ever going to be a great shooter. I think he'll be fine. But his footwork, because he's always been a guy who could just blow by guys, and then you don't play against 7-footers. Like, the G League centers are 6'8", 6'9".
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, like there's good players down there. But like there's just not that like Baji goes down there and just runs shit. He plays in like these 5-minute spurts. It's like, wow, it's weird. Baji played 13 total minutes and had 7 blocks. What the hell? Because like guys are just not used to playing with somebody who's that big who can like WAP went down there and for a game and had 37 and 15.
I got those tweener fives, unfortunately, in that level.
So you just don't have that ability to kind of figure that out without having like the opening night and they played the Clippers. Remember Zubac just ate him up at the rim twice.
Yep.
And that
got
to me
killed in that game.
That was Scoot. Like you saw the eyes as white as dinner plates. Like, oh, this shit's different.
That was
like,
a welcome to the league moment. Russ was out there, guy he looked
PG,
up to.
Kawhi, yeah, like,
Yep.
But Zoo ate him up.
Yeah.
Ate him up, and it was like, they played Phoenix early on, and Nurk just said, nah, dog. And Nurk jumps over, 2 paper towels at this point. But he's just so big that when you get there, it's like jumping into a phone booth. Like, you're just not going to win that battle. So, I think if he figures out his footwork, that's a massive step forward for him.
I'll just add to that too. Like, give me a good floater too.
Headset, which keeps wanting to go weird on me. There we go.
You got me.
Yeah.
I just add that good footwork, important. Give me that floater, baby. I would love to see a nice floater getting in that paint, just right over guys like Nurk. This one from Ty. How about trading? I think this is gonna be a fairly quick answer. About trading and getting some extra picks in next year's draft.
Well, sure. I'd like that. Find me the other of the 29 teams. It's like, take my picks in the draft that is supposed to be very, 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 very good.
Unfortunately, it doesn't feel realistic for them, given the talent pool in that draft. Yeah.
Just saying. Like, would I like more swings at Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, Cooper Flagg?
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah. Or in 26 with AJ DeBonsa and the Boozers. Like, yeah. Like, you can talk me into that. Like, yeah, VJ Edgecombe. Like, I'm picking up what you're selling, guys. Like, yeah. I'm the draft next year that has like 12 6'7" to 6'9" guys that all like dribble, pass, shoot.
Yeah, all in on that.
All in on that.
This one from Daniel. Don't have a question. Just want to say thanks for doing the show. Daniel.
There you go.
Thank you for the compliment.
You.
This one from Rob.
I always
find these scenarios. I know it's a really old saying, but like I actually play the game in my mind with this. Gun to your head. No trades. Who will be the 7th pick? Will any current players be traded on draft night? I get nervous about this because I'm like, well, is that gun going off if I'm wrong? Like, what's the basis of that gun going off? Because it's a dangerous game to be playing. But what say you? No trades. Who will be the 7th pick? Current players that will be traded on draft night.
I think I'm gonna go Salon at 7. I think that's my answer.
Are you doing that because you think Cody's taken by Detroit?
I think there's a possibility of that. Also, Cody is safer. I agree. Salon's upside is not that much more. But again, in the level of scarcity and team building, I think he's harder archetype to find. A 6'10" dude who's incredibly strong, who has other stuff Like
Mhm.
he projects well as a shooter. He projects well as a defender. Like everything about him projects well. The shot blocking isn't as good as you'd like. Could he be a rim deterrent, or could he become better on that? I don't know. We'll see. But I also look at him like he's the guy. Derek White unlocked the Celtics. Aaron Gordon unlocked the Nuggets. Like you look at like the guys that unlock teams. Sean Marion / Tyson Chandler kind of unlock the Mavs. Like Chris Bosh is like the hyper version of that in Miami. But like the guys that unlock teams, that like willingly do the dirty stuff. Salon is already a guy who's mentally tuned to like, I will be the garbage pail or the garbage man. I will be the lunch pail guy. Like, and there's something about that in a guy who willingly accepts that role and then maybe like Wes Matthews. Wes Matthews was just, I'm going to be a dog. And then his role evolved and got bigger because they're like, well, shit, we got to have him on the floor more because he does all of these things. And then you go from role player to very impactful role player. Like Jeremy Grant was, the second round guy who didn't shoot threes. Everybody talks about like, oh, Jeremy Grant's like this great, like Jeremy was a flyer, man. Like he didn't shoot at all at Syracuse. He took 5 years working with John Townsend to turn into this great shooter.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a very good example. I think the only slight thing I would add to that is like how much different the league even felt when Jeremy was coming into it to what it is now too. I like the swing pick. It would make sense 6'10" with that size, especially if his workout was as good as they kind of indicated. Makes total sense.
I will play a different answer here. I will say they go Dalton.
I'm going to play the game that Dalton does not get drafted before. It wouldn't shock me. What I'm kind of curious about, not that it's a team that I think about a lot, but Detroit kind of cleaning house and basically saying, yeah, we effed this way up. We're going to try to be serious. I don't know if it'll work for them. They are Detroit. But I'm kind of curious what teams like them do. I think they're a hard team to read.
No, it's Trajan Langdon in place now. It's much harder to read. Like
yes,
Troy Weaver in charge, you kind of knew what they were going to do.
Right. And
they could get a little weird too.
That's what I'm saying is they might do something we don't expect.
Not even just with the draft. Like Cade's probably the only player there. They're like, yeah, we want to see what's here. Like, is Asar a part of their plans? Maybe.
You think they're out on Duran and Sar already?
I don't think they're out. I just don't think that they're Trajan Langdon's guys.
Yeah, they're not super committed to it. Yeah, I could see that.
Like Ivy, Thompson, Duran are all guys that they could be like, all right.
You get some good stuff, I think, for Ivy if you put him out there.
I think you get good stuff for all three.
No, I know. I was thinking of like logically what I think they'll do. Maybe they do trade all three. But they're a wild card to me.
Yeah, and they could get weird on draft night for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, this one from Neil Kerr. We're over the cap, and we'll have more players than roster spots. We take all four. Who's the first to go
In the game of musical chairs.
Too early to say. The safest bet is Malcolm.
I'd go Malcolm. Malcolm would be my pick if I had to guess right now.
Like he's minus 800 for doing odds on this.
That is an overwhelming favorite, my man.
Yeah, but I mean, like, as far as like the first to go, Malcolm. As far as like how soon they go, that's different.
Yeah. This is a fairly quick answer. I think we've talked about this on the pod before, but Dame Goat Cheese wants to know, why are the Blazers being so secretive on who they say is working out with them?
It's not the Blazers, it's agents.
Yeah.
That's why the workout was open today. Different agents are involved.
Yeah, I think the Blazers would love to have it open, have
the media there, and
they are the only one that has been having open workouts, and they continue to do so. Look, I've openly thrashed, bashed, and trashed Neil O'Shea for a million things. He had open workouts. Like, so this is an organizational thing. They like having it open because, I mean, at the worst case scenario here, number one, every team knows who is working out with guys, like behind the scenes. Like they get that information. It's not hard unless
there's calendars and schedules. They got to be on them.
Well, not just that, but like unless they're actively trying to hide something from you, which means they like, fun little one. Evan Mobley's camp didn't want Cleveland to draft him. They wanted him to go to Oklahoma City. And so they withheld medicals.
God, that would have been a fun situation.
But like that used to happen. That can't happen anymore under the new CBA. Under the new CBA, it's not something they can do. So, it's not a. The secretive stuff is the agents trying to keep things quiet as far as public stuff and trying to control what they can control.
This one from @Amar Greenberg. I've heard some of these trading up rumors. Is there any chance that Sarr falls to Houston and we trade up for him? Also, with sending Ant to Houston as part of that package, and that I believe that goes back to what we talked about earlier, the comment of adding Jabari to that. That would kind of be, just to reiterate on that, if Sarr is to fall out of the top 2 and he's at 3, you've mentioned you're really high on Sarr.
Yeah.
But we also know the Crone Zone sat courtside in Perth and watched him play.
With Schmitz.
Well, that's, he's in the Crone. The Crone Zone is including them all.
Collective.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's like the collective. Him falling to 3 is interesting. I wonder if it gets them to go, oh, crap. We got an opportunity here.
And that goes back to our conversation earlier of what you put in that deal,
What would make sense for Houston?
or do you just
Shrug your shoulders and say, well, not worth moving up to.
Sarr is the one player you could convince me to move up for, and I'd have to sit and think long and hard about what I would truly be willing to give up in the moment.
Does it feel like for Joe and company, he's the player to move up to?
I think so. I could be wrong, but like just stylistically, I think that's like the premier kind of center that they would want. Although one of the things this team needs to do is get better at screening, and that's something that Sarr just doesn't really do all that well yet. So
Okay.
we'll see.
This one from Lance Lewis. What is the over-under for number of current Blazers to be moved on or before by the end of the draft? He's asking if it's 2.5 to 3.5. I'm taking the under on those numbers.
Yeah, 1.5 I think is probably the number.
Yeah. This one from Andrew. Do you expect the Blazers to be more active in roster building before and during the draft than during free agency?
Doesn't really matter per se. I mean, it can depending on how things work out contractually and who's actually on the roster by then. It does change things. I still think probably post-draft is when
they sort some of this stuff out
between the draft and free agency, because that's when teams are trying to line things up and get all their ducks in a row. And interestingly enough, teams under the new CBA, teams can talk to their own free agents like a couple days before that now. So it's legal tampering, which the oxymoron.
Yeah, no kidding.
So there's somebody out there in NBA media that hates that. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It might be bond temps, but yeah, it's that does change things up a little bit. So you have like a much more steady ground to work from.
This one from Ben. He wants to know if culture is so big in sports, and we hear that Portland has been trying to build culture for the last few years. What really does that take as far as coach and personnel-wise standpoint?
Buy-in, work ethic, people as far as players.
There's a character to it for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and like this may not matter to some people, but in that Blazers locker room, they aren't bad guys. Like Ant, Jeremy, Malk, hell, even DA's crazy, but he's not a bad dude. Like, the whole ice thing and how stuff went down in Phoenix, like, doesn't make him a bad guy. And there's
the ice thing. The entire every one of us doesn't move anywhere when it's icy out.
But I don't want to pop anybody's balloon. Like, there are like downright shitty people in the NBA. Some of the players, they absolutely vile, rotten humans who like you just like, bro, what? And organizationally, they have prioritized character. They genuinely have.
Yeah.
They have not made a move for like perfect example
It's
is
been
like
that way for a long time, though, really, from
look,
organizational
yes,
standpoint.
and look again, it's because of the mark from the Jailblazers and
Mhm.
how much of an impact that was.
Big stain. Yeah.
Like the fan base, the pushback was crazy.
Yep.
You want to talk about like a fan base being motivated to not go to games and not support this team? That 2-year window,
Mm-hmm.
they like that's when the place was genuinely empty. It
Yeah.
was like, oh, the moat has been empty and it's no support. And I'm like, bro, it's still like 70% full on a Thursday night in January. Like it's still different. But no, they have made an active part that bit be an active part of building it out. And that's why, to be honest, like the vibes in the locker room, even though they're getting their teeth kicked in on a nightly basis, they didn't really falter or break. They really only had that come to Jesus moment on the road trip where they lost by 60. Like that's, or the New York trip. Yeah, that was that trip. Yeah. So, yeah, I think a big part of its character.
Is Joe Crone a genius for placements of players and getting them to championship caliber teams, or is he just being used by other GMs? Any chance we get another top 10 pick
While keeping pick 14. That's from Fletch Daddy.
So there would have 2 top 10 picks and 14.
Yeah, he's also. Is there any chance we get another top 10 pick while keeping pick 14?
No,
Yeah.
they don't. They're not going to have 3 first-round picks. Like that's
No.
That's
Also,
too-
we have to kind
too
of wait and
much.
see. Like, I think we can all
Like some of the players they've brought in recently. Like obviously Baby Kobe, I'm a big fan. Obviously, a lot of people love Scoot. The genius label, it has to kind of wait until you see how the talent develops and whether it pops or not.
For
So
sure.
This one from Rob Blaze. How confident are you that Malcolm
can be flipped for a first.
I think we hit this one already, but I
I
would say,
know there's been a couple.
No. Let's say I'm pretty confident, but just not a first in 2025, unless it's the very back end of the first, and even then it's kind of like it's a little dicey.
One from Chris. Over under 2.5 transactions between now and the end of the draft night. A lot of repeats here tonight, guys.
But you know what? I understand why we're asking a lot of these questions
because we're 2 weeks away, and obviously this roster is kind of in flux. So I think we kind of hammered that. I think we're both taking the under and probably putting at 1.5.
Yeah, and here's one that's popped up in the chat tonight, and people have been asking about him, is Zach Edey. I don't mind Zach Edey in general. Is my whole spiel on him.
Yeah.
When we get done here, I'll push. I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't push post on it the other night. I've got a write up from the workout participants on Tuesday that'll go live, including Edey.
Great.
And like Edey's one of the most impactful college basketball players of all time by basically every metric this last
Two-time
year.
player of the year.
But I am not interested in the word I'm about to use. I'm using because I'm dumb and I can't think of another word that fits it better. This team has too many other things to deal with to consider drafting a gimmick player that they have to build their second unit around. Does that make sense?
So
like, if you're a much more fundamentally sound team roster-wise, like the rest of your team is kind of built out, but you're like, man, our second unit could use a little bit of punch, and we're kind of short on bigs. What about Edey? Because the way he scores is not like putting him in pick and roll. Like, he's a good screener because he's massive, but he's not going to catch on the short roll and make decisions and, catch on the roll and dunk on dudes. Like, you're going to post him up. And that's now you have to build your secondary offense around that. So now you've got to have bench shooters, and now you've got to have somebody who's going to be effectively get him the ball, and you're going to build your defense around that. And if you want to have a starting unit that's going to be switch heavy, and I think that's something they want to do, whether it's Chauncey Billups or another head coach. But instead, now you've got this big. We're like, we're gonna put this guy in drop. Okay,
yeah.
I want to put this in perspective. I wanted to pull this up just so people truly understand what I mean by you post him up. Zach Edey had 534 post-ups where a shot, a foul, an assist, or a turnover took place. It accounted for 65% 4% of his total offense. He was in the 100th percentile, meaning he had more post-ups than anyone.
Yeah.
So
he's like 7'4", man. They had to get his big ass down there.
he's massive. And
He's a big human.
the other part of it was, come on, give me my total, please.
Yeah.
God dang it. For whatever reason, my possessions are going possessions per game, which he was getting 14 post-ups a game. Okay? You know what he wasn't doing? Working in the pick and roll, working in spot ups, working off screens, working in DHOs. Like, he's new to the game, like, relatively. Like, he's only been playing basketball, I think, for 6 years.
Yeah.
And he's a massive human, and he clearly has great touch. All of those things are true. I think the Blazers have far too many things that they need to sort through before they're like, hey, let's dick around with our second unit. Do you know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean.
So
I'm fascinated to see him operate. I mean, I know the clip went around, but like Dan Hurley coming on saying, Zach Edey can't work in the NBA. Something's wrong with the NBA. And I'm just like, I think that's a lot of respect in college from a great coach to a great college player is what that kind of is. But like, I'm just also I'm fascinated by him. I don't know if he's going to be good, great, okay, whatever. But like, I don't lean great or really good. But like, he's so mammoth. I just want to see it is all I'm saying. I just want to see it out there.
If he's Shaq, sure. But I don't, as big as he is, he's not Shaq.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's...
No, I know what you mean.
And again, I don't say this to denigrate the guy. He could end up being very successful.
Yeah.
But I don't think Portland should be the team to go down.
Portland's not the fit. Yeah,
No.
that's what you're saying. All right, let's get through a couple of these.
Yeah.
We're over an hour here. Mike Dennis wants to know, what's the benefit of having a lame duck coach? Should they pursue Becky Hammon? Aces are struggling right now a little bit.
What does one have to do with the other? I don't understand.
I think he's just throwing a situation like, hey, if it's not Chauncey going forward after this, should they pursue Becky? They did pursue her once.
Sure, they could take a look at her again. But I also would for all of the people who are like, oh, Becky's a better person and all these things, and Chauncey and what happened to him when his playing, or what he did or didn't do in his playing days, go ahead and do a quick Wikipedia on Becky Hammon and her treatment of women in the workplace before you get too excited about Becky Hammon as a human being. Just want to throw that one out there.
Boy, I wish I had a water bottle right now. I'd look to the side with my Can we shut Danny up? Shut Danny up right
I'm just saying, like, if everyone's going to get, like, worked up about stuff, like...
That's proprietary, Danny.
You know what I mean? It's like, look, go to Becky Hammon's Wikipedia. I bet you there's a blue link you can click on her controversies. That's all I'm saying.
This one from Adam. If the offer was there on the table, would you trade Anthony for 1 or 2 to go grab Sar Ricochet?
I still think no. It's just not enough.
Zach wants us to give middle tier player comps for all of the guys mocked for our 7th pick instead of going Klingon to Gobert, but Klingon to Zach Collins. Why? First of all, Zach, why do we want to do that? Why do we want to go mid tier with this 7th pick? I hope it's more than mid tier. It might be mid tier, but it seems.
Look, man, I
would argue all of them are kind of comp to mid tier. Like Reed Shepard on some mocks is Dante DiVincenzo. I mean,
like,
and I love Dante. Dante's a really good player.
I just called Cody Williams like the high end, being like a version of like Jaden McDaniels. I'd say that's a pretty like mid tier. I called Tijon Salon like broke boy Aaron Gordon, or like the low end Mo Wagner. Like, I don't think anybody's really going too crazy with these comps. Right?
No, I mean, you always get a couple, but I think for the most part, people are...
Like, Sar is really the only one, and maybe Klingon, and that's because, like, being big lends itself to those comps.
Yeah. All right, couple more, and then we'll wrap it up here. This one from @TheNason. What's your go-to summertime lunch? Do you have a summertime lunch?
Tacos. It's probably tacos.
Tacos is never a losing answer to any of them.
Like,
Breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
I love a good taco.
Street tacos, crunchy taco.
Yeah, I know street taco. I've
Okay.
never been a crunchy taco guy. Like, if I'm gonna go crappy taco, like, shout out Taco Bell, you guys are great. But if I'm going to the Bell, I'm not getting a crunchy taco.
I'm going soft taco.
I'm not even going soft. I'm going double decker,
well, I'll go double decker too.
or I'm going chalupa.
I love that red sauce in their bean burritos. If we're being honest,
Like,
oh my
look,
god,
man, the fire sauce is quite fire. Like,
bury me in it.
I don't. Yeah, like, if I had to go like full Rick and Morty death in like a vat of fire sauce, let my bones go there. I'm totally cool with that.
My summertime lunch is currently different, I think, than most summers. I'm in training mode for Hood to Coast, and I've been eating pretty well. So I'd say right now a chicken Caesar wrap, or like I've been doing Euro bowls with some lamb beef Euro slices. Oh my god!
Look, man, I think I've been pretty open, at least if not here on the radio. Lamb is my jam.
And lamb is my jam.
I stunk up the old studio when I first started.
Yeah, I will never forget that. I will never forget
with some
that.
lamb.
Just the worst smell of all time.
By worst you mean best.
Yeah, well,
Like I was the one who was stinking up that studio for 20 years before I got there. Come on.
like it wasn't Sukanik putting his bare ass feet on the desk every day after he'd walked around in flip flops for 7 hours.
Yeah, come on. Come on. But the lamb it leaves the mark.
Do you have any intel from Tuesday?
Really good, really competitive workout. That's what I heard.
Okay.
I heard some guys shined.
Trying to go through. There's a couple that I'm scrolling. I don't want you guys to take it personal if I don't shout you out. Just some of these questions we've literally answered. Trying to go through and be fair.
Here we go. Will Cronin's have a job this time next year? Give us your picks for 7-14. Who you'd like to see the Blazers pick? Do you think we see a move during the draft to move the vets? I'll go first because you're long-winded. I'll say yes.
Yeah.
Cronin's still here.
Yeah.
7, we talked about 7. 14, I will go De Silva. And do we think we see a move during the draft? I will say yes. We see one vet traded on draft night.
I'm basically gonna piggyback your answers. So
Just to switch up with the 7th pick.
Yeah, I will. With 14, I could see De Silva, but I could also see George from Miami. He's a guy I could see.
What do you make of Jacoby Walter?
I don't think he's gonna work out in Portland.
Okay.
So,
All right.
for what it's worth.
I saw him on one of the mocks, I think, in the last week or so.
Yeah,
And
somebody
like,
had him
okay.
coming here. It's kind of an awkward fit because he's more like 1-2 than 2-3.
Yeah.
And I just don't think depth-wise it makes a ton of sense to invest there. Even if they traded Malcolm, even if they traded Ant, like even if they made like more, I just don't. I think he fits in a place like Phoenix, where you've got like a bigger one in like Book, and he could play off that. I think that's the kind of place that he'd make more sense. I like pick 22. So,
Yeah. That's I mean, there's a couple other questions.
But again, it's something that I think we'd be piggybacking off of. That was,
I think we're an hour and 25 minutes or so into the questions. So I think that about does it.
All right. Well, you got anything coming up tomorrow on the show?
I do. Quick tease. Tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. for all you early risers. You guys driving into work or
Gross.
just, well, I mean, that 4 a.m. alarm doesn't feel good either, Danny. 7:30, we got a bro from Colorado, covered Buffalo basketball. We get to double dip the chip tomorrow with him.
Ooh.
Talk to somebody from Tennessee. Tomorrow we will talk with somebody about Cody Williams and Tristan Da Silva, and also just kind of the natural nature of what Tad Boyle has built in Boulder and why some of these players are so highly respected in the league. That'll be at 7:30, so we'll touch on some draft stuff on the radio show. Outside of the shenanigans that it's going to happen, we'll get to some Blazer draft-related stuff, talking about the 2 Colorado guys that have been tied at 7:30 a.m.
Nice. Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful Father's Day weekend. Remember, keep that one together. That's happening this weekend. for people that like me.
Boy, I don't know what that bird did on your hat, but it looks like it was really inappropriate.
Wow, what do you mean?
There is
What's going on?
there's white stuff all over that hat.
You're-
That bird is horny throwing that baseball.
You're terrible.
Am
So
I?
terrible.
You're the one.
Father's Day this weekend.
Well, how do you make babies?
There you go. Quick tease on the show front. Jonathan Wasserman will join Danny and Dusty on Tuesday. There you go. We'll have him on. He'll be right in the first hour, 12:30.
There we go.
We don't do a show on Tuesday.
Babe.
I am efforting getting one of or two of the No Ceilings guys here for the pod, as well as
Okay.
Mr. Wu. Jeremy.
Jeremy Woo.
Jeremy Wu of ESPN, and then Sam Vecini will join us sometime next week on the radio. So we will have a lot of draft coverage coming up.
Yes, the draft is rapidly approaching. I know everybody's really jacked about it. Great questions tonight. And, man, a lot can change between now and the next pod that we do.
Yeah, and like I said, I will have some stuff on the Patreon up very quickly after today's show. It all depends on how fast YouTube wants to process this, so I can get it done and up and loaded and done for the podcast. Otherwise, you can get Brandon 6 to 9 every morning with his co-host, Andy Dirt Johnson, who definitely I would eat under the table in a hot dog eating contest.
He bowed down to you, too. He's like, yeah, he's got it.
Yeah, look, man, beyond being the fat guy, the military breaks you in ways.
The only person that I think could beat you.
It's Ortner. That's even then.
Oh, no. If Sukanik is in on competition, he'll push.
See, the thing is, like, if we're doing total food, like, who could eat the most in an hour, I don't think I could put it away like I used to. I just don't eat but if we're talking like 5-10 minutes, I'm walking out of there with a gold medal hanging around my neck. Like,
you were my pick.
The speed, like the military just halt.
Yeah.
You get
the
in,
Ghost
you
and
get
Casper.
out.
You're eating all that
yeah,
crap.
it's just going immediately.
Yeah.
But like total food, Ortner's 25. His metabolism
used to be fat. Yeah.
Yeah, his metabolism. He's a former lineman. His metabolism is it's still working. Like it's not going to work for me. But yeah, you can catch Dusty and I noon to 3 every day. I think there might be one, maybe two more public workouts for the Blazers. There'll be lesser workouts. Don't hold me to that. It's a possibility. I think
in the air.
In the air. I think you're probably looking at another group of second rounders and probably like some late firsts.
Great.
So, other than that, everybody again, stay safe. Have a great Father's Day weekend. I'll have the Patreon stuff up soon, and then I'll have probably a shorter podcast on Monday or Tuesday is the plan. So, other than that, everyone take care. Talk soon. Have a great night. Bye.